Welcome back to another Scuba Continuous Intelligence training video. At this point, you've ideally watched the intro video where we talk about what Scuba is, and the Explore video where I walk through the Explore view and discuss everything that you'll see here, whether it's the visualizations and all the different functionality and what things mean in this builder. And in this video, what I'm going to do is show some more advanced functionality, like using multiple measures in a query, and then also using our ability to calculate and perform calculations in a query. And I'll show that relative to time view and how to toggle some of the chart options to visualize this in a different way. So if you haven't watched those previous videos, I suggest watching them. But for now, what I have here is a query that I've already ran, and you'll see that I have three different outputs, right? In this case, I have all users, users who purchase, and then the percentage of users who purchase. So inside of Scuba, you have the ability to define measures like how we had done in the previous video, and then you have the ability to perform math against them. And so in this case, we're performing a calculation of users that purchase, but you're free to do this for anything that it might be that you want to calculate, right? That could be percentage of users that are engaged, or it could be percentage of users that logged on, or how many users churn and what percentage of them are churned users compared to returned, and so on and so forth. There's really no limit to what you can do. So what I'm going to do is just start building this out, right? So in this first measure, you'll see what I can do here is rename the measure as I have in this first query that I ran. And instead of calling this measure 1, I want to call this all users, right? Because what I'm going to calculate here is a count, and instead of counting events, I'm going to choose users. And in this case, it's going to be filtered to all users and actors, right? So literally all of my users that are active within this 7-day to now time range. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and press go here, and we should get this 140,000 number again. So by running that, you'll see that I've replicated that query. And so here, now I want to use a second measure. So you'll see I click that plus measure drop down, and now I have the ability to define criteria that's different for a second measure. So in this case, I want to get my users who purchased. So I'll label it that. So users who purchase, and I'll keep the criteria that it adopted from the measure before. And instead of filtering to all user actors, I'm going to filter to users who perform the action of purchase. Now, one thing that's important to note here is that this action value is a column in my data set, right? And so in this case, this example or dummy data set has the column of action, and these different values are the different types of actions that our users can perform in our data set. Now for you, it might be something entirely different. It could be event name or event type or action type, and the different things that you'll see under this list could be the different things that you track for your product or your services. It could be people calling into a call center or upgrading things, or starting calls or sending messages or receiving chats and so on. So in this case, we're going to look at the purchase action. And so here I'll run the query again, so we'll get the two different numbers. So 29,000 users of this 140,000 are users who performed purchase actions. And now I'm going to start doing a calculation against it. So you'll see I click the measure button again, and it created a third measure. And you'll see it iteratively is adopting the filtering criteria from the measure above it. So in this case, I'm going to do something a little bit different though. So first I'll name it, which is percent of users who purchase. And instead of selecting things from the drop-down, I'll click into the count window here, and I will just press the equal sign. So once I do that, you'll see that it creates this new drop-down, And what's in here are a whole list of different functions, right? You can round, do all sorts of time calculations. And for these functions, I'll have a very specific video that just goes over these and discusses the things that you can do with them. But in this case, after you press the equal sign, press the open square bracket sign. And once you do that, you can see now that the first two values that populate are the two measures that I had defined up above. So you'll see I have users who purchase and all users. And so now what I'm going to do is select users who purchase, and then I'm going to enter a slash because I want to divide, and then open up a new bracket where it now allows me to select the next measure, which would be all users, right? I want it to divide users who purchase against all users. And in this case, when I press go, you'll see that now I have a third measure that populates a decimal, which shows me that 20.9% of our users are users that purchase. So let's say you wanted to format this as a percent and just pin the percent to a dashboard. So the way that you'd go about that would be with the chart options. So over here, I'll click on chart options, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different things that I can do. So first, I'll go down to formatting, and you'll see that I have the list of the measures that I have defined in the query definition window. And in this case, I want to format percent of users who purchase as a percent. And you'll see that I have a bunch of additional options. I can choose the number of decimal points and whether I want to use commas to separate thousands. But in this case, I'll just leave it and press apply. And you'll see that now it formats it as a normal percentage. So the second criteria that I had was to just pin this 20% value to a dashboard. So what I can do is go back to chart options, and in the display window I can deselect all users and users who purchase and press apply. And then what I can do is click pin over here, and now in this case maybe I want to create a new dashboard. I could say my new dash and save it, and now this percentage will be available on my new dashboard. So continuing forward with how we can use this percentage with time view, I'll just go ahead and toggle to the time visualization. So over here you'll see that I just have the percentage of users that purchase, and the reason for that is because in the chart options I still have the other two measures deselected. Now let's say you want to look at the percentage of users that purchase against all of your users, right? You want to see this as it trends over time, because that's exactly what we're looking at with the time view here. So the x-axis here is time, so it goes from March 31st to April 6th, and each one of these dots represents a different time window. You'll see in the pop-out I have March 31st at 0 o'clock to March 31st at 24 o'clock UTC, and so in this 24-hour period I had 11% of users purchase within this time range. So let's say that, I expect on one of these days I had a sale or something, or I released a new feature and I want to see how many users use it against the total population of users. Well, in this case I can go back to chart options and select all users and press apply. But what happens here now is I don't really get any value out of this percentage. I can't see it trending over time in relation to all users, and that's simply because all users is a value of 41,000, whereas a percentage is just a decimal point, right? It's 0.011. So in this case, what I want to do is then go back to chart options, and from the additional time view options select show multiple axes. So let me go ahead and click that and press apply, and now you'll see that I was able to overlay the two different measures as two separate lines, and you'll notice that on the y-axis here I have the percent of users who purchase, and then on this side I have all users as a numeric value, so I can see how those things correspond with each other. Maybe at this certain day I have a lot more active users, so the percentage of users that purchase spikes just naturally because there's more users that are active, or it could be a very interesting inverse relationship, for example. So this is how you would go about building that sort of thing out. Not only building out calculations, but also applying it to the time view and using some chart options. I also, want to point out that there is all sorts of advanced mathematics that you can do. So for example, if I press the equal sign, and I can open up a parens and then a square bracket, and I can start doing parenthetical math, right? So I can say, this is users who purchase divided by all users, and then I can go ahead and maybe multiply that times 100, for example. There's no limit to the things you can do with your basic arithmetic expressions of addition, division, multiplication, and subtraction. So go ahead and try that out, and if you have any other questions, please refer to our videos or reach out to help@scuba.io. Thanks.